Alright, this is going to be a super quick guide to CRAM Tetris. 3D CRAM Tetris specifically, because 2D CRAM Tetris is bad. It's just bad. I'm making this because I've seen some people express confusion about doing 3D CRAM, and I really don't think it's that hard, at least at a basic level. So this is going to be a guide to basic, what I would describe as standard 2-level 3D CRAM Tetris. This is not perfect. This is not a guide to how to make the best cram cannon. This is a guide to how to make a decent enough 3D cram Tetris cannon. So what you do is you first start off with this. It's just a cram connector with packers all around the outside, and you prefab that. Then you go over to your turret layout. I've selected a 9x9 because it's convenient, and very small crams will want to go with something different from this most probably, but this is good at this size, and it only gets better as you go up in size. It will get more efficient. This is not supposed to be here. So what you do is you take that prefab and you stick it all around, and the more of these holes in the center where all 4 have a packer pointing at them, the better, because that is where you are going to place your pellets. You'll place pellets in any place that has all 4 connections, and you will place compactors anywhere that does not. Typically, this will be around the edges. If there are points in the center where this is not the case, either you have messed up or you are doing something outside the scope of this video. Next step is that you add CRAM connectors on top of all the existing connectors, and you place a compactor like this on top of each of the pellets. Not the compactors for now. We'll do that in the next step. You will do this on top and on bottom of this layer, but it is only 2 layers repeating. What you want to do with this step is to make sure that there are as many of them pointing this middle connector at the same block as possible. If you have 3 pointing at one, that's going to be about as good as it gets, because the 4th is always going to be a connector. Again, if that is not the case, you are doing something outside the scope of this video. Sometimes this will not be the case, especially until we put the ones in the next stage. It's not the end of the world. Next is incidentally, I have connectors on the bottom here just to show what is connected and what is not. You will put in all of the connectors to connect all of these added packers in as little space as you can manage, and never putting a connector in front of the packers. You will also put packers around the outside on top of the compactors, and do the same there. As I said, you will have places where this is not possible. It's not the end of the world. Your goal is to have all of these pointing at spaces, and to have empty spaces both there and elsewhere that will be used for different things. Mostly, what you will do is you will place compactors in those spaces. Next, you will make use of any additional spaces. You can do a lot with these. It depends on the size of your turret, what you will need them for. I have chosen gauge increasers because cram should generally be 2000 millimeter. Generally the most efficient way to do it, but I digress. You can use it for material storage. You can use it for surge protectors, batteries, whatever you want. So we now have our 2 layers. This is it. This is the main part of it. You will prefab these 2 layers, and you will stack them on each other a few times. I have chosen to do it times 3. Generally, you will want to have the connector, compactor, packer layer both on the top and the bottom for material efficiency, but I digress. You will then want to connect up all of your columns of CRAM connectors. For this one onward, I have disconnected. You can see there is no firing piece down here, and I will disconnect these just to show that this is the case. All of this is still connected by this and through these columns going down. Next, you will want to fill any space with packers that you can, ideally, of course, you want as many pointing at one spot as possible. Like this is as good as it's probably going to get. But sometimes you will have one that has 2 or one that has 3. Sometimes you'll even have one that has 1. But regardless, you want to use up space doing this. If you can put them facing down like this on something and have it point both ways, so much the better. This one is sitting on top of a gauge increaser, so that would be pointless. That is another thing you can do with those spaces. If you do not need any more for them, you can put compactors there. On the top and typically the bottom layer, you will have to do this step. Next, you fill in these with compactors. Simple enough. Next is what I call the optimization step, because if we go over here, what we have is a very material efficient CRAM cannon. However, it is very heavy on compactors. It has a reload time of 63 seconds. Side note, I am using entirely HE pellets in this. Don't do that. It's bad. You'll want to have a mix of them, and I'll explain more in a second. It's just using all HE makes the firepower numbers comparable most easily. So the optimization stage. You can see that this has a reload time of 29 seconds. It is less pellets, of course, but it is overall higher firepower, significantly so. It is also still about as material efficient because of the higher fire rate, primarily. So what you do in this step is that you will grab your pellets and you will find any compactor that has 4 or more connectors, more packers connected to it. And you will want to replace those with pellets until you have hit the reload speed that you want. You will need to do this less for larger turrets. In this case, there are quite a few, primarily along the sort of corners here, as well as a couple inside here. Not that one. Not that one either. Some at the top, and I swear there was one other in here. Anyway, replace them with that until you hit your desired fire rate. If you cannot hit your desired fire rate, you may need to start replacing ones that have 3 connectors to them. This is not ideal, but it is not the end of the world. So, this is a perfectly functional CRAM cannon. It has a bad pellet mix. Side note, don't use this. This will absolutely mess up your Tetris. It will replace pellets with compactors or vice versa, and it will ruin the efficiency of your gun. Okay, so here's the other one I was thinking of, sort of these corners here. This is a perfectly fine gun. You would want to switch the pellets around. You would do that manually. Just take your hardener pellets or frag pellets or whatever and replace them. If you are going to use hardener pellets, which you should, then place them in the places that have the fewest packers because they are marginally less expensive, 150 instead of 180 for all of the payload pellets. So if you're going to do that, start with the ones that have 4 here. If you run out and you need more hardeners, start on the ones that have 5, so on and so forth. Do this until you have the desired mix of pellets. Personally, I prefer about 40% hardener, maybe less. Aim for around 12 AP is what I usually go for. And you will want to I prefer to have some HE with a little bit of frag, but that is also somewhat outside the scope of this video. How to make a good CRAM shell is somewhat different. This is just a way to build an efficient gun to do it with. There are also additional things you can do. For example, I can tell you right now that you could take, I believe it was back here, you could point some of these in a different direction, and you could make a couple of spaces. So example, here, switch this like that, and this like that. This is now a 3 connector space, but this is now a 5 connector space. And if we replace both of those like so, well, it made the efficiency worse, but it made it fire faster. This is the kind of thing that just kind of comes with knowing this stuff more, like sort of being able to spot that kind of place. You can also just fiddle around with it and figure it out, but this is, again, somewhat outside the scope of this video. There are also more forms of advanced CRAM Tetris. This right here, my camera's very fast. This right here is an example of what Sean Reed 343 calls cross CRAM Tetris, which he credits to someone named KnifeCoon, who I do not know. But what this is, as far as I can tell, 4-layer repeating CRAM Tetris, and is much more complicated to set up, and is the one off of the Dracolich. But this process will give you a perfectly usable CRAM cannon, and it will not be hard. I promise.